Welcome in, guys. We are back with Liga NOS, next year to be Liga Buen.
Yes.
And Fabio, giving us a roundup. The season has already finished.
Yes.
This is being recorded on Sunday, so we know that the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, everything else is happening this weekend. But the Portuguese league finished last weekend. And today,
Wednesday, finished midweek.
Wednesday was the last games on Wednesday, right? Okay. But tonight is the Portuguese Cup final. So come Wednesday, we will know whether Benfica have beaten Braga in the final, is it?
Yep.
Or if Braga are going to get that result. So we thought we'd record this before then because we wanted to catch Fabio in a happier mood, a more positive environment, that kind of thing. Fabs, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Again, glad we're doing this before the game and a few hours before the game as well, so I'm not a nervous wreck, but we'll see what happens.
Cool. So last time we really caught up, we looked at it was match day, I think 30. So match day 31, we started to see some interesting results come out. So just to give everybody a sort of a quick overview as well, Fabio had obviously put forward his shouts about how he thought the league would finish. Obviously, we went with Sporting, Porto, and Benfica as the top three. I think at that point in time, it was kind of nailed on. There could have been a couple of slip-ups here and there, but it was already kind of set there. It would have been a monumental collapse by certain teams for that to fall apart. But also going down, Fabs had Nacional, Firenze, and then Gil Vicente. He went with Gil Vicente. How dare he go against McGilly? But he had Gil Vicente to go down. So obviously looking quickly now at the match day 31 results, Fabio, that kind of went out the window. The Gil Vicente one went out straight away pretty much, didn't it?
There were some surprising results towards the last three games at the bottom of the table. Obviously, there isn't a lot of points in it. I think it was between, I think before the last game of the season, there was only like 9 points or something ridiculous like that between 16th and 6th place.
Yeah.
And even now, obviously, end of the season, there's only 12 points between 16th and 6th place. You know, it's not a lot. So all it takes is a couple of wins or a couple of draws to be able to get out of relegation zone. And that's exactly what Gil Vicente did. I mean, obviously, since we last spoke, they won 2 games and got a draw, and that was enough to put them almost mid-table. So there was a lot of dangerous teams that were in danger. If you look above Vista, they were 17th, 16th majority of the season. Again, 2 wins and mid-table.
Yeah, it made a massive difference right at the end of the season. And I mean, Gil Vicente's game on match day 31 was against Maritimo and at Maritimo, and Gil Vicente won 1-0. So, I mean, Maritimo were down the bottom end, and that just gave them that bit of breathing space, I think, as well. But then equally, we look further down, and obviously Firenze were in a lot of trouble. But a draw with Vittoria maybe gave them a bit of hope. But, I mean, Vittoria had a player sent off as well, so maybe it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, to get another 2 points on the board. Thing is, it wouldn't have mattered, obviously, even if they'd won that game, they would have only been on 33 points, but it would have given them a boost. I think Guimarães were in poor form regardless for a little while now.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, even if they had beat Victoria, if you look at their next result, which was against Porto, they got absolutely destroyed. So that would have knocked their confidence back into them. That's for sure.
Yeah, fair. They would have suddenly been there. But they did win their last game against Tondela. Interestingly.
But then lost 4-0 again against Santa Clara.
They did, last game of the season. Beating Tondela in the middle. Yes, bizarrely, those 3 games, though, the Vittoria, Firenze, and Tondela, I'm just double checking as well. Yeah, okay. So no, they got beat by Santa Clara, but each one of the other games, the losing team had a player sent off. The away team had a player sent off. So Vittoria had a player sent off in the first one. Firenze then had a player sent off away at Porto, and Tondela had a player sent off at home. Away at Firenze. So yeah. Lots of red cards going on. Yeah, lots of cards going on until the last one where I'm guessing they'd obviously just given up and decided they couldn't be bothered against Santa Clara, who are not known for scoring lots of goals.
Well, they've had a good season by their standards. They have a very good winger. I think his name's is it Carlos Jr.? It's something Jr. and he's Brazilian. Right. I think he scored about 16 goals this season, which, yeah, it's not normal. Here we go.
Carlos, yes, got 14 goals.
Carlos Carvalho Jr. So yeah, he's very good, and it's not normal for them to get a lot of goals. They're more of a defensive team. They have very good. They have very, very good centre backs. So it's not normal to see them up there, but or at least not spanking teams like they have this season. But they did well, and they deserved to go to the European Conference League.
Yes,
and that win secured it. So
yeah, pushed them up into 6th place above Vitoria, who obviously essentially lost 2 and drew 2 of their last 4, which completely dropped them out of any contention. Because I think at one point they were 5th when we were talking, and they fell away big time. Paus obviously managed to sort of maintain just enough to keep them in there in 5th place. And obviously the top 3, Sporting, didn't have a collapse. When they started to look like they were having a wobble, suddenly turned it around with wins, but did lose a game. They were unbeaten at one point, but they did lose a game in the end.
Yes, they did.
So that unbeaten season, they got beat 4-3, second to last game away at Benfica.
Yeah, they did.
Hence, you can see the smugness and hear the smugness in Fabs' voice. But Sporting, that was the only game they lost all season. And in a way, you've got to feel sorry for them a little bit to have such a good season, and then in the 33rd of 34 games, they get beat 4-3. Not from your point of view, obviously, you don't care. But because that was 100% the set. And I think by that point in time, you'd already guaranteed that 3rd place anyway. But yeah, that was the guaranteed settler. And Braga sort of sat 4th, as we say. Porto maintained their form, but it was never going to be enough. They really needed Sporting to have a monumental collapse, and they finished 5 points.
The thing is that they drew 2 of their last 5 as well. Oh, last 6, sorry. 2 of their last 6.
Yeah.
Because they drew against Benfica and they drew against Moreirense.
Yeah. And they needed Sporting to lose more than just the one game.
Well, the thing is that those 2 draws right there would have guaranteed them the league. If you consider the fact that Moreirense were poor majority of the season, that. I mean, if you look at Moreirense's run of form in the last 6 games, there's 2 losses, 2 draws, 2 wins. Porto could have easily have got a result out of that, and then obviously the draw against Benfica as well. I'm not going to say they deserved the result out of that. Personally, I thought we were better in the first half, but they did very well in the second half.
Yeah,
deserved the draw, but I don't think they deserved more than that.
And it's interesting as well because we talked before about the goal difference and things like that, and Braga have had a relatively good season. They're well above anyone else in 4th place, 11 points clear of Paus. But the goal difference between the top 3 and even Braga, Sporting are on plus 45, Porto are on plus 45, Benfica are on plus 42, and then Braga are on plus 20. And also 18 goals, 17 goals less scored.
Yeah.
The void is there, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, goals in Portugal get you games. Obviously, that's the same for every league, but ultimately, our defenses aren't amazing. We don't have a lot of teams with the financial ability to hold on to good defenders. It's not possible. So if you can score goals and if you've got good strikers to finish off opportunities, you're going to win the league. It's one of the reasons Benfica struggled mostly. We have 7 draws, and from what I remember, a lot of them where we had created a lot of good chances, but our strikers just couldn't put them away.
Yeah, and I think also you look at that and it's almost a little bit like it was in Scotland a few years ago, where when one of the lower teams does find someone good, they're always running the risk of Benfica, Porto or Sporting coming in and snapping them up. Whether they're going to be first choice or not at that club, it means that you don't necessarily have them to create issues against you.
Exactly. And as Benfica did this for a while. Benfica followed the same approach as Chelsea did for a few years, where you buy players to loan them
Yep.
out and eventually get a return on them. So yeah, it was just a case of them just not facing Benfica at all, or not facing one of the other big three either. But
Yeah.
or even if you were, if even if you did buy them and put them out on loan to those clubs again, they can't play against the team
Yeah.
they're on the
So
books
actually,
for,
that
but they can't play
yeah,
against the other two teams.
exactly. So they can only ever really benefit you, unless, of
Exactly.
course, that team goes on a manic run and and that player is a legend, and you're then left floundering, thinking, "Bugger, we can't get any goals," and we sent in there.
Which is very common for Benfica. It's the reason why they're not in a Champions League this year. I mean, we
Yeah.
said that Zivkovic wasn't good enough for us. We
Yeah.
sold him to PAOK, and then he scored in the Champions League playoffs to guarantee us sinking into Europa League. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
it
so
happens.
from Portugal, how does that work next season then? Are Benfica in the Europa League? Do they go through qualifying for the Champions League? How many slots do you get?
So because of how well Porto have been doing in the Champions League, we have an extra spot this season. So Sporting and Porto go directly into the Champions League.
Yeah.
Third place, Benfica has to go through the qualifiers. I think it's two
Yeah.
qualifiers, not just the one.
Yeah.
I think Braga and Passos have to do a playoff for Europa League.
Right. Okay.
I think they have to go to qualifiers for Europa League.
Yeah.
If they fail, they go into the European Conference, and I think
Ouch.
Santa Clara in
Yeah.
sixth has to do a conference for European.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, a playoff for European Conference
Yeah.
League.
Cool. Okay. That's fine. That's cool. That's cool. So just looking further down the league, obviously Santa Clara we just touched on. Vittoria Guimaraes had the hideous form at the end of the season and sort of dropped well off the pace. I mean, when you think they're on 43 points, they're 3 points behind Santa Clara and 10 behind Paus. And their form at the end has meant that they've just missed out on everything, haven't they, really?
Yeah, which is a shame because they have very good players, and Quaresma has been incredible this season from what I've understood, and they have Marcus Edwards, obviously, from former Spurs player who's equally very good, but can't score goals.
No, create as many chances as you want. If you haven't got someone to finish it, it makes no difference.
They don't like strikers wise. I can't remember who their main striker, I think, is Stunipan from Colombia.
Okay.
He's not particularly technically gifted. He's very quick, very strong, very tall, but not technically gifted.
Right. Okay.
And they have a couple of Portuguese youngsters, but they're not incredible. So yeah, they weren't ready for the Portuguese league. Their strikers are not ready for the Portuguese league. So
right. Okay. Thrown into the deep end a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Following Vittoria, Moreirense, who ended up finishing level on points, but their goal difference is better. So I'm guessing Portugal goes on the head-to-head rule, similar to Spain.
Yes, it's head-to-head based on how they did in away goals against each other.
Yeah, cool. Famalicão managed to push themselves well clear of any sort of danger in the end and finished 9th.
Again, not that far from. It's only 9 points away. It's only 3 wins in it between 9th place and 17th. And they did have again a very good. It's those 3 wins in their last 5.
Yeah,
that did it because they were close to relegation, and all of a sudden they beat Santa Clara, they beat Guimarães, and they beat Nacional, and two of those were teams that. Very good. Santa Clara and Guimarães were having a good season up till then, but beating Nacional there as well kind of helped them secure the fact that they were gonna stay up.
And I mean, Nacional looked like a done team for a long time, so it gives you a boost if you know you're going into those games. It's one of those where don't mess it up and you'll be all right kind of attitude, isn't it? So, Belenenses finishing in 10th place, level on points again with Famalicão. Yeah, mid-table. Standard.
They're a mid-table team. They don't. Very rarely they get up in near the European spots, and very rarely they're in the relegation spots. So, they haven't got very good owners or directors. That used to be that's one of the only other teams. Well, technically it's not them anymore, but so they in Portugal we have an association and club, and they're together essentially,
Right. Okay.
and that's how clubs are run. So there's Sport Lisbon Benfica, which is our club, and
Yeah.
then we have the administration, which is Benfica SAD.
Right.
And they run the club together as a partnership. With Belenenses, they also had that, but there was arguments between payments and something else. I can't remember what caused the breakout. However, on the last game of the season, Belenenses, the club who owns the stadium, decided to turn off the lights and decided to close the gates and wouldn't allow. So this was a few seasons ago now. They wouldn't allow Belenenses SAD, who owns the players, to actually play the final game of the season. So there was a huge breakout. It wasn't amicable at all.
Brilliant.
Belenenses, the club, kept the trophy, so obviously technically then started again, and they've started in I think 4th division in Portugal, which is very low. It's going to be very difficult for them to get back up anytime soon.
Wow.
And
that's
here
brilliant.
Belenenses are sad. The administration, they managed to stay in the league, kept the players, and they very rarely get above 10th place.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. That's a proper grassroots football fallout. Wow, mate, I'm not going to bring you the kit if you're not going to let me play. Yeah. Ridiculous. Love it. It's my ball, and I'm going home.
I'm going home. No one else playing if I'm not playing.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Gil Vicente finished in 11th, so survived the dreaded drop or playoff place that was predicted, and actually a decent run of form towards the end of the season. They lost the last one, but drew 1-2, which gave them the bumper needed just to push themselves away from it. Tondela in 12th on 36, a hideous run of form from Tondela.
Yep, very poor.
But on the plus side, apart from Boa Vista, everyone else below them pretty much had a hideous run of form as well. So they stitched themselves up, but everyone else stitched themselves up more. So I
think the surprise for me was Maritimo just scraping it.
Yeah.
I think in their last 6 games, they had 2 wins, 2 draws as well. And they managed to scrape getting away. I think they beat both Boa Vista and Braga.
Yeah.
And then I think they drew against Passos and Guimarães. So tough games,
Yeah.
Boa Vista obviously were battling relegation with Maritimo at the point where they played. So to get that win was valuable for them. And then to go away to to play at home against Braga and win, that was huge. Braga was struggling back then. They've been struggling for form for a little while now, but they were really struggling back then. Then they lost to Gil Vicente, which guaranteed Gil Vicente would get away. But that's when they then got 2 draws again against tough teams, against Passos Ferreira, who obviously qualified for Europe, and a draw against Guimarães as well, which is 8th. So and if by the last game, it was all but guaranteed that they would stay up. They would stay in 15th. I think they had nothing left to play for, and Sporting, rightfully so, spanked them. Yeah. As a celebration for winning the title.
Yeah, I think the interesting one as well, looking at Boa Vista, up until the last 2 games of the season, were 16th in that relegation slot.
Yeah.
And those 2 wins for Boa Vista lifted them up to 13th on 36 points. Yeah. And, if you were Rio Ave, you would be kicking yourself. They won their last game, but the one before is the one that's got away. They're only 2 points adrift. I mean, Rio Ave are in the playoff places in 16th, and they're still only 2 points behind Tondela in 12th.
Yeah, which is just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, any one win or one loss for any of those teams in there could have been completely changed the whole perspective of it. But
that's why the Portuguese league is so strange. Obviously, I mean, there's not a lot of difference between 16th and 6th. If you finish a season and you say, relegation spot's only 12 points away, traditionally you've had a poor season. However, for Santa Clara, it means that they've gone to Europe or potentially going to Europe.
Yeah.
So, it's absurd.
It is crazy. So Boa Vista, as we say, finishing 13th alongside Tondela on the same amount of points. Portimonense finishing in
Yeah.
14th on 35.
Yep.
Maritimo,
Nothing to say about them. It's been a poor season for them by their standards, or at least their recent standards. They've
yeah,
had great players like Jackson Martinez and Nakajima who went to Porto, but yeah, this season it's not been good. They've had an average squad and played poorly.
yeah, and scraped to survival.
Yeah,
Very much in the same vein as you said, Maritimo scraped their survival as well. Both teams on 35 points. Portimonense, I think obviously a better team, even though they've struggled this year. I mean, you look at their goal difference, and it's that Maritimo have been turned over a number of times. Portimonense just haven't. They're only on a -7 goal difference. But at the end of the day, it's still only 35 points, and they've scraped survival.
I think Portimonense, what saved them was the fact that they have Beto. He's a very good striker. He found a really good run of form for a space of like 6-7 games, and
scored some very nice goals as well. I remember you sending a couple over to me. Yeah.
Which and that gave him confidence to keep scoring, and he saved them.
Yeah,
he saved them. If it wasn't for him, I reckon he'd be down there. He saved them from a few games, and even when he didn't score, he's a threat and created space for other people because he attracts two centre backs. He's very tall, very strong, very quick, great shot power, and very agile. So he's the sort of player that you want your two best centre backs on him. You need to put another centre back on the pitch. You can't play two centre backs against a player like that. It just doesn't work. He'll drag them all over the place. You need someone sitting on him and someone sweeping. Otherwise, you're not. Otherwise, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to what you were saying earlier as well, where the strikers are the key defensively in the league. There's not many teams who are brilliantly defensive or defensively brilliant, but it's all about how good the forwards are. And if you create the opportunities, can you take them? And if you've got a player at the bottom end of that table, if you've got a player who can score goals, you're always in with a fighting shout, aren't you? So of survival. So,
I mean, if you look at it, I think there's only been about 5 or 6 teams who've conceded less than 40 goals, which is just absurd. That's so many goals.
It is.
And I think only 3 teams have less goals than games played. So.
Yeah, and when you look at that, only 4 or 5 teams. I'm just double checking. So you've got 5 teams have conceded less than 40, and then Paus Ferreira in 5th conceded 41. Rio Ave in 16th and in the relegation playoff only conceded 40. And that just goes to show it's about where the goals come from as opposed to how good you are defensively.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're not going to have a lot of goals scored during these games unless you're obviously the top 3.
Yeah,
where you are just going to get a lot of goals. Just look at Porto; they're 74 goals. It's absurd.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's 2.5 goals per game. It just goes to show it makes a difference. It really does.
It does. We briefly touched on Maritimo finishing in 15th again on 35 points. Rio Ave we've sort of talked about as well. They go into the playoff. Do we know who their playoff? How does it work in the second division? Is it whoever finishes third plays
Whoever
them?
finishes third. So it's a Roca they're playing against who have won their last 5 games.
So it could be interesting. We could see Rio Ave drop out unless, of course, they suddenly turn up. Although they did win their last game, so maybe there will be a little bit of momentum, hopefully, for them. But it'd be nice to see a Roca come up. So, new team.
Roca's a very good team. They've got this player on loan, actually, funnily enough, from Famalicão called Lawrence Ofori, he's a bit of a box-to-box, but my God, he works hard.
Yeah.
And although so far he's proven to be a championship side, so a Liga 2 player, he hasn't proven to be better than that. Last season he was playing for Famalicão in the first division. A few minutes he didn't do very well, but loaned out to Roca this season. He's been one of their best players, and I reckon I reckon they could do it. I reckon
Yeah.
they got a very good defender, very good centre back called Jerome Basso as well, who's very physical. So
Cool. Cool.
yeah, will be an interesting game between those two. I can't imagine it's going to be a walk in the park for Rio Ave, especially considering their form.
Yeah.
Obviously, financial wise, they should really have attracted the right sort of players to be able to avoid, well, even being in the position they are in. But
Mhm.
they've really bugged it. 'Cause Rio Ave have a good squad individually. I mean, they have a few players on loan from Sporting. They have Camacho, former Liverpool, Gelson Dalla, Carlos Mane, Francisco Giraldes. Their front four players, all former Sporting players. And then you have Pele, Benfica player, Felipe Augusto, also a Benfica player, Fabio Quintrao, former Benfica and Sporting, Anderlin Santos, the centre back, Valencia player and former Braga. You know, they Ivo Pinto, former Norwich player.
Yeah.
They've got quality players. They just
couldn't
get it together.
And it could be that there actually are, so as you say, individually, so many of them all new coming in together doesn't always work. But you know, and then obviously Farenense and Nacional both down. See you later, boys. Enjoy the second division next year. Who are the top two in the second division? Who are the two teams coming up?
Vizela, I believe, and Estoril. Which
I was going to say is Estoril.
Estoril
won it, didn't they? Yeah, Estoril won it, I think.
Long time overdue for Estoril. That they've been one of the better teams in the league, in the second division for a while now, and it was about time that they came up.
Fantastic. Right, guys, that's the league roundup. We will be back with Fabio very soon to catch up on some of the players. For now, though, we'll go back to me at the other point in time. Guys, we are back with Fabio, looking at the players now that have done their bit in Liga NOS to see
That's a fair few.
To see how they've done, whether they've saved their team, whether they've boosted them to new heights or not. So let's have a little look. Obviously, as expected, with Sporting winning the league, top scorer from Sporting.
Scraped it, got a hat-trick in the last game.
Did
there was a bit of controversy with this one. So Seferovic and Pote and Pedro Gonçalves, his name is, went into the last game both on 20 goals.
Right.
And Benfica. So normally, if trophies are still up for grabs, teams play at the same time.
Yeah.
The Portuguese league decided not to do that and let Benfica play first and Sporting play second. Seferovic scored 2. He thought he'd done a good job. Thought he'd done enough to win the top goal scorer trophy, and Pote just went in and got a hat trick.
Weird, very bizarre.
It was an interesting decision from the league. Benfica complained, but ultimately, there's nothing you can do.
And it's very bizarre because it's been the same in Italy and the same in Spain this year. Yeah. So, and I think in Spain it actually had a difference as well. Because had Barca not beaten Eibar and Sevilla had won, Sevilla would have finished third and Barca would have then dropped out and had to qualify for the Champions League next season. But Barca played the day before. So it meant that Sevilla's game became a dead rubber, essentially. And it was just a bit bizarre. And it's happened across a number of leagues this year, which is I find very odd. I think everyone on that last day should play at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously, in this case, it affected Seferovic a little bit, but ultimately, to be totally honest with you, I don't think he deserved. I don't know. My feelings towards Seferovic are very mixed, and as much as I appreciate he's been our top goal scorer twice now, I just don't think he's good enough to be winning those sorts of trophies. And I think the only reason he's up there is through a lack of goal scoring talents in the league this year. I mean, Pote, yes, he scored 23 goals, but he's a midfielder.
Yeah.
And Porto's strikers haven't really gotten off the mark this season.
No.
And it's the first time I think that I remember that the top five actually consists players that aren't a Benfica, Porto, Sporting, or Braga player. I mean, you have Mario Gonzalez up there from Tondela, and you have Carlos
Yeah.
Juniors from Santa Clara. So
Yeah.
and both of those are wingers.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we sort of touched on there as well. And we've got Mehdi Taremi in there in third with 16 goals.
He was more of a second forward than anything else.
Yeah. Shadow striker almost. Which actually then shows when you look at the assists, because Taremi's obviously got a number of assists towards the end of the season and bumped himself up to number 1 with 11. And I'll be honest, it's quite nice, not nice, but quite nice that Everton Suarez has dropped down a little bit, because as you said, he wasn't a regular starter. So it's good to see guys that are regular starters getting those assists, because it means that Everton Suarez can't go and moan to anyone that, look how many assists I got, man, and I wasn't even starting. But he came third in the end.
He's managed to Everton over the last 6 games. I think he's got 4 man of the matches. So
really? So he's come back in.
Last few games, he scored a beauty against Porto when we drew against them. I think he assisted a couple against Sporting. Our second goal against Sporting, he got a back heel assist, and he's been playing very well. So well, in fact, that Brazil have called him up for their next games.
Really? Okay, fair enough.
So obviously, he was already a regular for them when Benfica bought him. It just solidified his position in the last few games.
Yeah, fair enough. So where you were saying about the goal side of things not being just full of Sporting, Benfica, or Porto players, the assists are purely Porto and Benfica. No Sporting players and no one from anywhere else. Alex Grimaldo in second place with 9. Darwin Núñez showing that he can't score, but he'll happily set someone else up to score.
He's terrible. So many chances, so many one-on-ones where he cuts back and passes to Seferovic, or cuts back and passes to Pizzi or Everton or Rafa. I've never seen a striker be less selfish, but it doesn't work.
Almost
you expect your striker to just hit the ball so many times where he cuts back and then the defender closes him down, or he cuts back and his pass goes wayward, or he cuts back and then passes a good ball but the other striker misses. Just hit the ball. You're one-on-one with a keeper. You're a striker. Just score goals.
Fair enough.
And it feels like he's almost afraid to hit them.
Yeah, lacking of confidence, maybe. Gets into those positions.
He's 21 years old. He'll figure it out.
If he's missed a few chances, then that does play on your mind every time you go through. So, and if you're going through, because he's quick, isn't he?
He's very, very physical. He's something physically. It's hard to keep on top of him. However, you don't need to because he keeps missing him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean sometimes when you get that amount of time and space, if you create those opportunities, sometimes as a forward you want to work on instinct, and if you're running through on goal, there's too much time to think and you end up overthinking it. And maybe that's what's happening. So instead of overthinking it, he's like, hopefully someone's catching up with me. And there you are, there's a tap-in.
Our issue with Rafa as well was the exact same thing. Our other winger. He's very quick, probably the quickest player in the league. And my God, he's terrible in front of goal.
Worked in the favour of Seferovic, though, because he's obviously got quite a lot of tap-ins.
He's got a fair few tap-ins.
Everton Suarez, as we say, drops down into 4th place after being top of the assist chart for most of the season, with 8, joined by Otavio Edmilson de Silva Monteiro of
Big
Porto.
Name.
Yes, so Otavio ends in there with 8 assists as well.
Almost got called up for Portugal, even though he's Brazilian, just because he's been playing for Porto for a while now, and he's had such a good season. He's been rated as one of the best players this season. Then I think the only player, for example, on Who Scored, the only player that's ranked above him this season is Pedro Gonçalves, the top goal scorer in the league. And Otavio, considering the fact that he hasn't got that many goals, and obviously he's got 8 assists, but that really doesn't justify having such a high ranking. But he's been ranked as the 2nd best player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at 8 assists, when you bear in mind that Porto have scored 70 odd goals, 8 assists
It's not
isn't
that
much when you think Mediterranean's got 11 assists and 16 goals. I mean, he's contributed 25 of Porto's 75 goals. I mean, even then, that's still not massive.
Yeah.
But it's it's a proper contribution. Yeah, exactly. Just looking further down, we've got the yellow cards. No surprise to see Nicolas Otamendi in there, joint top most yellow cards with 13, joint with Fabio Jose Ferreiro Pacheco.
He's very old.
Yeah.
Very, very good holding midfielder, but he's gotten on, and his lack of pace is what cost him those 13 yellow cards. Really, just gets the challenges a bit too late.
Otamendi not lacking in pace, just a bit kamikaze.
Well, he's I think we talked about this in the last time we spoke. We use him as a way to break out play, to stop counterattacks, because we have such a high line. So the second the ball gets played out normally over the top by the goalkeeper or into their target man, who's then got his back to goal, Otamendi's the one that's there to clamp down. So more often than not, he goes through the back of players and gives away a silly free kick. But that's what he's there for. That's what we ask of him.
And what will please me, what does please me, is people have obviously been listening from Portugal, because we go into we finished the season and the red cards tally now. There are 9 players with 2 red cards. So there was an abundance of red cards in the last few games, and a lot of people have gone in and gone, hold on, I've had Badgie on down the local. Let's go smash someone to get another red card, because he's not happy there's not enough in there. So we've obviously got a load of people now in there joining the previous incumbents of Chizadozzi, Javi Garcia, Nogueira,
Sergio,
and Fran Sergio. And now we have got David Carmo. We have got Julio Cesar de Freitas Filo, Rafael Defendi. That, I mean, if you're gonna get sent off, you want to be Defendi, don't you? Salvador Agra and Stanislav Krychuk.
Yeah, very good goalkeeper.
Yes, I remember you saying goalkeeper.
Have a red card in him.
He's got 2 red cards in him. Legend. But it's also teams all around, sort of dotted around. So there can't be any sort of shout. I mean, there's none from Sporting, Benfica, or Porto in there, but Braga have got 2 players in there. Probably ended up costing them a little bit. Firenze are in there, Tondela, Gil Vicente, Belenenses, and Boavista.
Vista's got the top 2, which is Javi Garcia and Chitozi, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
They are just that sort of team. They're very aggressive.
Yeah. But in the end, that aggression served them well, and they didn't go down. They stayed up.
Paid off.
It paid off just enough. That deficit of player did not mean that they got relegated. It did not impact them too much. So Fabio, very quickly, your thoughts for player of the year potentially within Portugal. Who do you feel has been sort of the standout players this year?
Excluding goals scored, because obviously I think that affects everyone's decision when it comes to who they should vote for top player. That's why you see Ronaldo and Messi non-stop winning trophies, and defenders and midfielders constantly ignored. Sebastian Coates for me has been the best player. He's been incredible. Him and João Palhinha, which is a holding mid for Sporting as well.
Those two is a regular of mine on FM drafts. The guy is a beast, absolute beast, and quite regularly I will play him as a ball-playing centre-back or a libero as well, because he's 6'3" and he's good on the ball, and he loves a tackle.
He loves a tackle. And Sebastian Coates, so Sporting have a really young squad. Sebastian Coates has really grown as a leader, and he's really helped mature that team and keep the nerves together, especially towards the end of the season when the results did start to dip. He was their saviour a few times. The first time we played Sporting and we couldn't beat them, but that was mostly because Sebastian Coates was just everywhere.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast.
The games I saw, he was just everywhere. Last few seasons, there was talks about him leaving because he wasn't good enough for Sporting, and now this season he's smashed it.
Yeah, I mean, he struggled at Liverpool, didn't he, when he was
He
there?
really did.
But he seemed to always be a regular in and around the Uruguay squad, even when they were doing well. So there was always something someone knew about him. But he's an absolute beast. So 6'5", something like that. So
ridiculous.
Threat at corners, attacking, great in the defensive
He's got a few
side
goals
of
this
things
season.
as
He's
well.
got 5 goals this season.
Yeah, there we go. So that just goes to show. So your main guy this year, Sebastian Coates, closely followed by João Palhinha. You know what? Just from that on Football Manager, João Palhinha is someone that I'd never heard of before, but has become such an instrumental player whenever I try and sign people.
He last season he was at Braga on loan from Sporting, and Braga had an incredible season, mostly because of his partnership with Fran Sergio. They're both very tall, very physical, great tacklers, great passing ability, and everyone knew that him going back to Sporting was going to be a threat. Just didn't realize he was going to have this much of an impact.
Right.
He's been phenomenal. He won't help you with goals, but he will break up everything in terms of build-up play. There's not a lot of passes he doesn't intercept. There's not a lot of passes he doesn't win. And I think he wins. I think I was looking at it earlier. Aerial duels won per game. 3 aerial. He wins 3 duels per game, which is just absurd. I think he's one of the highest in the league. I think the highest in the league is a striker from Firenze who wins 5. But but that's just the way they play. They just bomb the ball forward and hope that he wins the ball. So
and you would expect normally if you've got a big striker, they would be that person or your defenders to be attacking the ball and winning those duels. So having a centre midfielder do it is unusual, but fair play.
Works for him.
I love it. I love it.
Sebastian Coates got 3.3 as well. He's very good.
6'5" beast. And Sebastian Coates also, who's because he was always a little bit liable to lunge in and nail someone from behind, but he's not in the sending off list. He's not in the booking list. He's done bits this season.
This is the thing. Like last few seasons, he's got a few on goals. He's got a few penalties, like silly penalties given away.
Yeah,
he's had a few red cards, but this season he just kept a clear head and managed to bag himself a great season and obviously really helped Sporting win the league. So
bagged
there's not much else you can say.
No. Yeah. So there we go, guys. There is our complete roundup on Liga NOS, as it is going to be known. Nevermore. Liga NOS. We will not mention Liga NOS ever again.
Might change again in 5 years' time when the contract's up. But because we were Liga win before. We were Liga win back in 2007, 2008, and then we changed to Liga Mail and then Liga NOS, and here we are.
If I'm still doing Down the Local in 5 years' time and we're doing this, something's going right, mate.
Exactly.
So good, cool. So we will be back with Fabio very soon, in terms of not minutes but weeks, when we look at the Portugal squad and his thoughts on that going into the Euros and that group of death: Portugal, Germany, Italy,
France.
Oh, it's even worse. It's France and Hungary.
Well, we beat him in the Euro. We beat him in the final of the Euro. We can do it again.
Yeah. France, Portugal, Germany, and Hungary. We'll be getting Fabio's take on that. We will also be setting up the FM Draft Foreign Correspondent Challenge. I'll be honest, I just made that up on the spot. I hadn't really thought of a name for
That's
it.
Very good. They're very good for on the spot.
Which will be me against Fabio, only picking players from Liga NOS over the last season. I'm lucky on this one. I've got that little bit of inside knowledge with Gil Vicente. But do you know what? There's still players I haven't heard of. We will be picking that up. That will then be put on the show as well, guys. But for now, Fabs, it has been a pleasure as always, my friend.
Absolute pleasure.
Good luck for tonight.
Thank you.
Although not tonight, but the night the other day. We'll let people know on the show how it's gone. And we'll maybe get some tissues out to you or something.
Oh God, don't. We could do this. Unfortunately, we've had 2 centre backs come off injured on Wednesday. So we only have Otamendi and a B team centre back available today. It's going to be very interesting.
Okay. Good luck. Guys,
Thanks.
we'll catch Fabio soon. Until then, au revoir.
See you later.